So that's me. I've got to apologise before I start. The reason I'm going first is I need to leave shortly after I've given this talk, so I'm going first. So if you're going second, I'm not walking out because I dislike your talk. Okay, so I'm going to talk about App Insights. Who's used App Insights? Who hasn't used App Insights? Excellent. Okay. I was worried that everyone would go, I know App Insights, and I'd just be talking to a load of people who were like, yeah, we know that. All right, so the basics around App Insights. Basically, you've got a view and a store. So you store your stuff in Log Analytics, and you view it in App Insights. These used to be distinct products. And if this works, yep, they're now grouped under a sort of umbrella thing of Azure Monitor, which sort of seems very simple, but then Microsoft came up with this, which is insane. It's like they've got a simple thing and then they've made it into this. So that's a bit too complicated. So what I was going to talk about was the basics and the things that are actually useful instead of like all this ridiculous like ingestion and all this analysis and feeding it out to this place and that place, and when 90% of people only use the basics. So I think most people who have used App Insights have used search. If you've got an app that you ever want to diagnose what's going wrong with it, you'll use the overview. You may or may not have set up an availability test. You can do some quite cool things with them. And then the rest of it, you might not have even seen unless you're kind of using it quite a lot. So I thought I'd just go through them. I'm probably not going to do any live demos during this because we've only got 15 minutes. But the overview, basically, you get a single pane, and it just gives you a view of what's happening with your app. So this is one of the apps that I ran it on. You just load this up and you look at that, and it just tells you, you've got, I was getting 250 failed requests at that time. So you can drill into that and see what's going on. And these all sort of break out into their own things. In fact, I might just quickly take my life in my hands and really is taking my life in my hands. Oh, right, okay. I thought that'd be the case because I'm not connected. Right. There we go. Okay. So search. You can go into search and you can find items that have been logged in the App Insights log. So it gives you this out of the box, so you can sort of say, I want to see all the events in the last 24 hours, and it color codes them. So it'll say, I've got nearly 900 requests. Some of them were availability tests. In this particular case, there was no exceptions, but you can drill into exceptions. And then just by looking at it, you can see, oh, hang on, there's something went on there, and you can drill into it. So if that happens to be when your system went down, then that's kind of a useful thing to sort of know. Availability tests, these are really interesting. So you can run an availability test, and you've got a couple out of the box. So you can basically have it just poll your website, say, is my website still up? You can also have it do some slightly more advanced things. So with the new standard test, you can have it actually make a post or a put request or something like that. And then it'll just tell you run it every half an hour or whatever, and then you can check that your site's up. And if not, you can get an alert to say, basically to email you and say your site's gone down. Live metrics, this is the really cool one. This is the one where if you run it, everybody's dead impressed. It's probably not that useful. I've never seen anybody actually do anything with it, but it is dead impressive because when you run it, you get a live view of what's happening with your system. So this actually scrolls across and you can see your requests coming in as they come in. And then if you go to the application map, you get this sort of thing. So this is one of the apps that I was using. So it's a really simple app. It's just like a forms over data app. But I've got my availability test there into the app, and that references a database. If there was 30 different APIs here, they would all appear along with when they were called and what they were called by. So that's really useful, even just to map out your system. So if you get to a new system and you put App Insights on it, you can basically map it out like that. And there's two views for that. So there's off this side, if you could see it, there's another thing that basically says change the view of it, and it'll show you in a sort of left to right view instead of a sort of what's the word? Topograph, whatever. Yeah, that. And this was the alerts that I was talking about. So you can set up an alert. You can say if the site's down, then alert me. But you can also say things like, if the number of failed requests suddenly becomes more than it usually is. So here you've got a dynamic set of requests. So you can say, okay, if the failed requests are suddenly more than they usually are, whatever that happens to be, then tell me, and you'll get an alert, and it'll say, oh, actually, your failed requests have gone higher than they should be. You want to look into that, and it'll reset itself. So it'll if you were getting 100 requests an hour that were failing, and then it went to 150, you'd get an alert. But then if it stayed at 150, you wouldn't keep getting alerts saying it's still at 150. But then if it jumps up again to 200, you get another alert saying it's now 200. And similarly, if it drops and then it rises again. And metrics. So this is where you can basically use sort of signals about your app to say to sort of work out what's going on. So here I've done a really simple one. I've just had the availability against a failed request, which kind of tells you that the availability doesn't really have any correlation with the failed request. But you can do things like, if you suspect your problem is memory, you can, for example, have a look at the memory against failed requests, and then if you suddenly see some correlation, you think, oh, actually that might be why I'm getting failed requests. So that was the basics. The next part is basically stuff that I thought wasn't, it's not like what you'd call advanced, but it's slightly more than you would just look at to begin with. So this, I didn't know until recently that these logs had their own language. Oh, I knew they had their own language. I didn't realise it was called Custo. It's like this SQL type syntax. Which it kind of generates for you, but you can write yourself. And as you can see here, so this site that I ran this against is not a WordPress site. So there's obviously some people having a bit of a trying to look against the site. But you can do loads of cool things with that. I mean, I'm not gone into it as far as you can, but you can have it draw your pie charts and graphs and all kinds of cool things. And with very little kind of messing about, you don't need to actually be well versed with that Custo language. In fact, you can get ChatGPT to write you a really good query in it if you just tell it what you want. That's not how I did that. I just got out of the box. That was just, I said I just wanted any standard request. But workbook. So has anybody used dashboards? So workbooks are kind of an App Insights specific dashboard, if you like, and they have the advantage that you can kind of chain them. You can have parameters and you can have dynamic parameters and all this kind of stuff. So you can sort of chain them. You can have a particular widget and then you can have that widget depend on a different widget and say actually the output of this goes into something else. And then you can you can have a graph at the back of it that's sort of the result of that chain of things. So they are pretty cool. Funnels and user flows. These I only came across these recently, and I wrote a blog post about it because I was that impressed, and they're so obvious to write. So you have got a particular thing. So in this case, I've got like going to the index page on the site, and this is a really simplistic example, but there might be 50 different things that can happen after you go to that index page, and there might be 30 things that go into it. And then you can get this, and it'll basically say, look, this is the journey that your user took. So that's like your user flow. And then the funnel is you pick one of these, and it'll say these are the things that came before the thing that you picked, and these are the things that came after the thing you picked. So if you notice that, and you can with the user flow, you can pick 3 or 4 steps. So you can say, actually, if somebody goes to the basket page, adds an item, and then checks out, and then the thing crashes, tell me. And then it'll say, okay, this many people got to the basket page. Out of that, this many people got to check out. Out of them, this many people crashed. So yeah, really useful little feature. And I think that's it. Anybody got any questions?
How does the baseline, like you said earlier, when you set a rule, it sort of tailors it to...
Oh, with the errors specifically, yeah.
But does it sort of look at, say, like last week's activity for that sort of time frame and adjust it accordingly, or is it just sort of static value?
So I think, and I'm not 110%, but basically it works on, I'm about 90% on this, it works on you are where you are. So if you're getting 100 errors an hour, then it'll think you're getting 100 errors an hour. So if it suddenly jumps, then suddenly you're above that, but it'll normalise at whatever you've normalised at. And so I think it's quite a low, and you set it as well. So you couldn't see it on that, but you set the there's like a period that you set it for. So you'll say I want you to tell me every 10 minutes or something like that. So it's over that period as well. So I think that's the answer to your question, but I'll double check that. And
I appreciate it. I've just used previous tools where they're obviously a lot more expensive, like app dynamics and stuff, where they go, right, it's 9 o'clock on a Monday. Last 9 o'clock on Monday, we have this scale. So I'm going to compare it to that baseline.
The alerts are pretty cheap per alert. App Insight, the logs are less cheap. So if you go a bit crazy with the logs, you can pay a lot of money for logs. But the actual alerts themselves are kind of...
Appreciate it, yes.
Any more?